Happening now on Grid Tonight. Jamie Whincup says Red Bull Ampol Racing won't stand in the way if Shane Van Gisbergen wants to pursue future opportunities in NASCAR. Could we be witnessing the final race weekends of SVG's career as a full-time supercars driver? IndyCar silly season is starting to fire up. Where could David Malukas be headed in 2024? Formula One released the 2024 schedule earlier today. 24 races in 24. What are the pros and cons of next year's calendar? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me, Joshua Birch and Jonathan Fio from the Racing Experts filling in for Matt White this week. We encourage everyone to comment and chat below and ask questions. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening. It seemed like the SVG fever is just not going to die down.
I don't want it to as well. First weekend I've ever swept the board on Pick a Winner. Well done, SVG, as well, getting me some good points to get back up there. And as you say, after three-time Supercars champion Shane Van Gisbergen pulled off the unthinkable, winning a race in the NASCAR Cup Series on debut, it left many thinking about his future racing plans. In his post-race interview with NBC Sports, Van Gisbergen said he was planning to race in Australia for one more year, and then he'd be open to coming over to race in America after that. SVG's contract with Red Bull Ampol Racing in Supercars runs out at the end of 2024. Now, interestingly enough, team principal and 7 times Cup Series champion Jamie Whincup told Fox Sports News in Australia that he'd be willing to let SVG out of his contract a year early if he wants to make the switch to NASCAR. Of course, they'll have to sit down and have a conversation about this, but Whincup doesn't seem to have any problems about releasing SVG at the end of the current season if it means an opportunity of a lifetime to go stateside. Photo courtesy there of Michael Reeves from Getty Images. Jonathan's with us tonight. Welcome back to the show. SVG is currently 34 years old. Jonathan, do you think that he'd have the potential to become a weekly contender in NASCAR? And are you surprised that Whincup is willing to let him walk at the end of 2023?
Well, let me just say, if he does come over, the American crowd would be very receptive. I was there at the Chicago Street Race on the front stretch when Van Gisbergen got out of the car and the crowd erupted in electric cheers. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before at a race. It was really incredible. And honestly, I think Whincup saying that shows that he stands behind his driver. He stands behind him and whatever he will do. Now, do I think he'll actually go over to the U.S. and race full-time 1 year early if he chooses to? I don't think so. I think that Supercars is his baby. It's what he loves to do. He even said it post-race, I love this win. It hasn't fully sunk in yet, but, I'm a Supercars guy. This is my thing. I've won the Bathurst 1000. He's won championships before. He's won Mount Panorama 500 as well. So Supercars is his thing. So if he gets a good offer to come race, sure, maybe. But I think that just at the point of his career, 34 years old, he would be kind of an old rookie over here. So it would be interesting to see. But I think for right now, this is just a really good feel-good story and just a good driver that a lot of teams are going to have on their docket if they ever need a road course ringer to come over and race again.
Yes, and if Shane Van Gisbergen does leave Supercars for racing in America, he certainly wouldn't be the first driver to take on a different challenge. In the mid-2000s, Marcos Ambrose came over to NASCAR after winning 2 championships in Supercars. Ambrose was able to find some success, especially on road courses. He won 5 Xfinity races. 4 of those happened at Watkins Glen and 1 in Montreal. Both of his Cup wins were at Watkins Glen in back-to-back years, 2011 and 2012. Ambrose raced in Cup full-time for 6 years before returning to Supercars, an entire decade later to a completely different series that he remembered. Now, in 2021, we saw Scott McLaughlin switch to IndyCar after winning 3 Supercar titles. Now, up to this point, we've seen him win 4 IndyCar races and become a regular weekly contender. Now, when you look at Van Gisbergen's supercar career, there's really nothing left for him to prove down under. 80 wins, 4th on the all-time list behind Mark Skaife, Craig Loudons, and his boss, Jamie Whincup. Last year, he set the record of most wins in a single season with 21 victories. He's won the Bathurst 1000 twice, plus many race victories at the most iconic tracks in supercars. You can't argue that there's nothing left for him to prove in supercars. Anything extra would just be adding to his own legacy. So it's understandable why something new might be appealing to him after being one of the most dominant supercars drivers in the last several years. Rod Brown says, I knew it could happen, and it did. Kobe, when the likes of Ambrose, and 2 seconds, Adam's also saying, to me, this is what I think it'll happen. To SVG, he'll retire in supercars in 2024, 2025 full-time in NASCAR and drive for a Chevy team. Why Chevy? Because that's what he drives now down under. It seems to be a very close tie links. And Rob Brown says, I hope he does 4 races for Trackhouse next year in between the Super Cup races. Looks to be a possibility as well. But Kobe, with the likes of Ambrose, McLaughlin, and SVG, find success stateside, what does it say about the level of talent in supercars? And how should the series and fans feel about the possibility of losing another top driver to America?
I think it really shows that these Australian supercars drivers are the real deal. And if you're IndyCar, you don't necessarily need to go down your ladder system to try to find someone on the road to Indy. And for NASCAR, you don't have to necessarily look in the Xfinity Truck Series or ARCA as well for the next time. You could very well get someone from the Australian Supercars Championship, because those drivers have proven time and time again that they're one of the best. And I follow supercars very, very closely these days, and I know those drivers are they are the real deal. They can get the job done. I think they can go toe to toe with anyone, just like Shane Van Gisbergen was saying. He made comments earlier in the week that the top 10 in the Supercars Championship could come over and basically do what I just did against some of the best drivers in the world over here in America. So I think this just further shows that Supercars needs a lot more respect on the world stage. And I think Shane Van Gisbergen getting that big win in Chicago is certainly going to help that case. And it'll be interesting to see if SVG decides to come over here, follow in the footsteps of Marcos Ambrose, or even Scott McLaughlin, whatever he decides to do with his career next. Whether it's going to be stock cars, Indy cars, World Rally Championship. We know he's had some success there as well, or even getting a factory ride in sports car racing, because that's something that SVG has done in the past with sports cars. He's had success in Europe. He's run a few IMSA races as well. So really, he has plenty of options of what he could do in the future among various racing series. And in regards to the supercars fans out there, I know it must be disappointing, to see their favorite drivers, go on to do bigger and better things. First, in recent memory, Scott McLaughlin leaving supercars, going to IndyCar. Now the possibility of Shane Van Gisbergen moving on to another series. But at the end of the day, while it may be disappointing for the fans of those drivers, if they're true fans, they're going to stick behind them wherever they go. And the same Scott McLaughlin fans who followed him in supercars, watched the IndyCar race today to continue cheering on, and SVG decides to come race in America, I'm sure they're going to I got a little tongue tied there, but I'm sure they're going to be able to do the same and be proud of what their driver was able to accomplish. So we're certainly going to be following this story in the next few months ahead, because I'm sure we're probably going to hear more developments regarding SVG's future in motorsports. And now going to bring Jonathan Fiel back in, because he ended up going to the Chicago street course this weekend. So Jonathan, wanted to give you an opportunity to share any more details from your trip to Chicago and what it was like.
Yeah, just the street course experience in general. I think a lot of fans took to it very well, especially new fans. I know some people were out there with. I saw a whole brigade with the Cal Nodden Jr. hats, which is kind of fun to see. And then there were kind of your typical Chicago festival goers who were there taking it in. People were really awestruck by the sounds of the cars and the spectacle of it all. The DJs were spinning tracks under caution of the Xfinity race. So it was a real festival atmosphere. And I also, too, with all the experiences in Chicago, I really think just on that alone, like that will bring back the race. Just knowing how big of a deal was to people and how big it was to the Metro as well. I went to a sandwich shop like about 25 miles away, and they knew exactly what I was talking about when I was wearing my NASCAR shirt. And they said, man, I want to go to that race. You know, I'm kind of jealous of you that you get to go. So a lot of potential, a lot of attraction toward the race. Also want to bring up too, Kobe, you were talking about how the Australian supercars drivers, if they can come over to the U.S. and take on the best drivers in the U.S., absolutely. You know, the Gen 7 chassis is very similar to the supercars chassis. It was actually based off of that. Steve O'Donnell touched on that in the post-race availability. So, you know, you look at a guy like Brody Kostecki, you know, one of those top 10 drivers you mentioned, has attracted the attention of a lot of teams like RCR possibly. I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen's win right there is opening up Pandora's box, and it kind of makes you understand why a team like RCR is looking at a guy like that, especially someone who's kind of young as well.
I'm wearing the merch. Chicago. That's what I was just picking up. It was right at the top of the green part with the green screen. You can't see, but yes, this is what I watched the race in as well. Listening to US Around's commentary, loved every single second of it. What a race it was, and that's a regret. I know it's hot where Kobe is right now, but this is a bad idea in the studio putting on a very thick hoodie with a shirt on underneath. But yes. Chicago delivered massively. You guys know how long I've been watching Supercars, says Adam as well. Indeed, we have. Rod Brown says, we only have about 9 races on the calendar here. Not enough for Shane. He can do it again next year, in my opinion. He needs opportunity to understand more NASCAR. I think for the first ever time we went street racing, that was a massive success. It nearly didn't happen. I'm so glad it did. Everybody's raving of it, and it was definitely put it on the map.
I'm glad it happened because I did not want to reschedule my flight. That would have been very expensive.
I need to take this off now. It's boiling in here. Hang on a second.
Me too. Whew.
Not a good idea, but then again, I've seen Eddie Jordan do worse on a Saturday night.
Oh, Kobe. Oh, man.
So
bring some of that here. Whew.
When we do races in the summer, I don't know why we always decide to do it at like the hottest time of the days. Okay. Moving away from NASCAR in Chicago in a story that I'm sure is going to be positive for the sport for a long, long time to come. Long may street circuits reign, because that was a great race, handled brilliantly. By the way, happy 4th of July celebrations to everybody over there stateside. And yesterday, while Americans were celebrating with fireworks on Independence Day, there were some fireworks in the NTT IndyCar Series with a major silly season update. In an interview with Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, David Malukas confirmed he won't return to Dale Coyne Racing in 2024. The link to this article is in the video description below. Now, Malukas said his representatives are talking to other teams. Nothing's been signed yet, but there's encouraging signs in these talks. He revealed that he chose Dale Coyne's team because it's a good environment for young drivers to learn how to be an IndyCar driver. However, after showing some flashes of brilliance in his 2 seasons in IndyCar, Malukas feels ready to take the next step in his career by joining one of the top teams in the series. The photo taken there by Joe Sabinski from Penske Entertainment. Kobe, Jonathan, and Kobe, starting with you on this one. Which team is a good fit for Malukas next season? Do you think he's ready for that next step?
Yeah, IndyCar Series wasn't getting the full swing now, and there's certainly going to be a few seats open for next season. I think I'm going to start off talking about Andretti Autosport. I know entering the season, Devlin DeFrancesco, that number 29 Honda's been under a lot of pressure this season, and I will say, I think although the results don't necessarily show it, I've seen a lot of improvement in Devlin this year compared to his rookie season, but it may not be enough for him to be able to keep his seat. So I certainly think if Andretti is looking to add a new driver to his lineup, David Malukas has a lot of potential. I think he would be a great fit over with that organization, and then could potentially have 2 seats available at Chip Ganassi Racing. We don't know what the situation is going to be at Marcus Ericsson, who seems to be really frustrated with the way the contract situation is going right now. Feels like he deserves to be paid like a top tier IndyCar driver. We'll see if him and Ganassi can come to a deal there. It would be such a shame to see that those two split up, because it seems like they're a good fit for one another, but unfortunately sometimes business gets in the way of what you really want to do. And then got the number 11 that's been split between Marcus Armstrong and Takuma Sato. Maybe Ganassi goes for one full-time driver in that car next year, and that could also be a spot for Malukas. But if I'm looking at his potential landing spots, I think Andretti or Ganassi would be my best bet there, because he said he's looking for a place where he can go compete for wins and championships in one of the series' best cars fielded by those teams. And you also asked, do I think he's ready for the next step? I do. I think Malukas showed, as you said, a lot of flashes of brilliance last season, a lot of potential. If he had maybe one or two more laps, could have potentially won on the short oval at Gateway. That was a really great race for him. Last year we saw several great races. This year he's been kind of quiet, lots of struggles. I'm thinking maybe it's just a sophomore slump that he's going through. I still think the potential is there. And although this season we haven't seen many flashy Malukas performances compared to 2022, I still think he's ready to move up and be in a more competitive car.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said about Andretti or Ganassi being a possible landing spot for Malukas. And, it really seems like this season has been that sophomore slump, because if you take away the 4 DNFs he's had, I mean, you have a 4th place at Texas, you have a 10th place at St. Pete, you have the 6th place finish at Mid-Ohio. So I think Malukas has a lot of potential. And the fact that he's driving this well with these Dale Coyne cars, I'm not saying they're bad or anything, but obviously, as David said, it is a learning point. It's a jumping off point. The fact that he's running well like he is right now in these different parts, I think really puts it out to the different team owners that, yes, I can run well. Yes, I can be a competitive driver. Now, when you're talking about Ganassi and the split ride, I don't know. I just think Armstrong is showing really good performance early on, not having much experience. Obviously, this is his first start. He's just trying to get used to the car. So I think that Ganassi is kind of warming up the seat a little bit for Armstrong, but I do see where you're coming from with Andretti about how Devlin DeFrancesco, the times it seems like, doesn't perform, doesn't, show any more improvement. It could be time running out for them, or it could be another team. We'll kind of roll that into the next segment, I guess.
Yes, because another for 2 seconds behind the mic, which is Matthew Owens. Hello, Matthew. Says Malukas is an absolute star, just waiting to get an opportunity in a consistently good car. This guy will win races in bunches. And I agree with you, actually. Had a rocky start, but I think this season has really been shining, and he's often surprised me in the commentary box. I remember actually Mid-Ohio, the last race, some stunning overtaking as well he achieved. So definitely think he's one to watch in the future. But another piece of the silly season news was reported by Nathan Brown from the Indy Star Reports that Meyershank Racing, the 2-car program, will indeed return next season. But the big news is that one of the seats has already been finalised, and it'll be announced at the end of August. Now, heading into 2023, many expected a better performance from MSR, and it's been a major struggle for Helio Castroneves and Simon Pagenaud, who didn't even race at Mid-Ohio last weekend after experiencing a very scary crash. Castroneves and Pagenaud aren't the only drivers potentially on the hot seat. There are a few more IndyCar drivers as well that could be in danger of losing their seats. And looking at Meyershank Racing's driver lineup for next season, what direction should the team head in? Who are some other drivers on the grid that should be concerned about getting replaced? And we'll start with you, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to talk specifically about Meyershank Racing, because I think any way you shake it, either driver, Simon Pagenaud, Helio Castroneves, that would be a hard decision for the team to make. Castroneves, he's getting toward the end of his career, but is still going pretty strong. You look at Pagenaud, who, I mean, my goodness, like, it has been such a sharp fall off. It was just, 4 years ago that he was contending for the championship. He had a 6.5 average finish, and now just can't seem to pull the momentum together. So I think either way, Meyershank Racing's gonna have a tough decision if they do decide, we don't want to go with one of these drivers. We're talking about David Malukas, could be a possible spot. I might venture to throw out there if possible, if something does happen. As far as the rest of the grid, I think maybe Christian Lundgaard, maybe. Kobe, what do you think?
Well, I think where Christian Lundgaard is right now in the points, he might be perfectly fine where he is right now with Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing, despite all the struggles that they had during the month of May, because Christian Lundgaard is 10th in the points right now. If you're running that well, given the team struggles, I would be okay with that because there's a lot of room of improvement there. And yeah, I totally agree. Marcos Racing has a lot of tough decisions to make. Elliot Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, two former drivers from Team Penske. There were a lot of expectations bringing those two drivers into the program. I'm not saying the type of expectations they had when they were both driving for Team Penske, which is to be a weekly contender and go out there to compete for wins in championship, but certainly a lot more. I think this season has certainly not been the season Marcos Racing has truly expected from their drivers. Simon Pagenaud really surprised how awful of a season he's having. Is his worst season of his IndyCar career. And Jonathan, I totally agree with you talking about the fall off that we've seen from Pagenaud. Typically, when drivers fall, and actually now that I think about it, looking at the situation, I'm wondering if it's mostly driver, mostly car, or a little bit of both. This is really crazy, like you're saying, Jonathan. Just a few years ago, Pagenaud was with Team Penske. He was a weekly contender. He even won the Indianapolis 500, and now he's in the bottom half of the field, struggling, not having good finishes at all. And then thank God he survived that really scary crash we saw on last Saturday morning at Mid Ohio. It's been a long time since I've seen an IndyCar barrel roll like that in such a violent manner. And we'll still have to wait to see if IndyCar is going to clear him for next weekend's race on the streets of downtown Toronto in Canada. Yeah, so Marcos Racing lots to think about over the next few weeks and months ahead. And it's very interesting. Nathan Brown reported that one of these seats have been finalized, and soon, by the end of next month, maybe we'll know who's going to be driving one of those cars next season. It seems like it may be a new driver. Could it be IMSA's Tom Blomqvist, who's testing IndyCar and who's been interested in coming to the series? Could it be a young newcomer, or could it be someone coming over from Europe to try IndyCar? We have to wait to see. And looking at some other drivers who should be concerned for their seats, we've talked about Devlin DeFrancesco, both of the guys at Marcos Racing, and I think someone else who should probably be concerned about his seat. We've talked about him quite a bit on the show in this manner in the past. Is Jack Harvey in that number 30 Honda? When you look where his teammates are in points, Lundgaard's 10th, Ray Hall in 14th, and then Harvey's all the way down in 23rd place, and he's behind Connor Daly in the points, who's missed a race after he lost his ride at car in the race, and then he's also behind Marcus Armstrong, who's missed two races, the Indy 500 and then the race on the mile and a half at Texas. So Jack Harvey is certainly not matching the performance of his teammates, and it seems like as time goes on, the pressure is just going to get more significant for Harvey, and we'll see what Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing decides to do with him moving forward. But yeah, certainly tense times for some of the drivers in the IndyCar paddock.
One driver I'm surprised that hasn't actually been replaced yet is actually someone who many people have been tipping for Formula One, and that's Colton Herta. And I mainly say Colton Herta because he has massively underperformed in the last couple of seasons as well. He's changed over from his own father's strategist to three strategists already this year as well down in the pit lane. It's not great news, and he's out of rhythm, he's out of contention, and he's out of position to win as well. I mean, continually losing out on victories. So I wouldn't be surprised if Andretti considers just dropping him down the field. And it's happened before, and I think he's got to be at risk. And add to that as well, Romain Grosjean, who many people thought they would be expecting. In fact, Andretti in a very poor situation moment with their drivers. None of them are up there really contending. And I feel like they lost out with Alexander Rossi just as he was getting his groove back because he already signed for McLaren because he got dropped by Andretti mid-season.
Yeah, and Kobe, you brought up a really good point about Jack Harvey. He's got to pick up the pace. He's off his teammates. And I think with Romain Grosjean, I think he brings the raw speed to the track. And I think what he just has to work on is closing out those races is the big thing.
Yeah.
Indeed,
yeah,
closing out those. Go on, Kobe.
Yeah, I think Roman Grosjean has this like wild, out of control energy. We've seen that throughout his entire career, even during his Formula One days, where he's like wild and out of control. But his biggest issue is he's never been able to rein it in. I think if he learns how to rein it in, then you can finally see the results for Grosjean comes through. I remember earlier in the year, Michael Andretti was openly talking about like we're getting close to a contract extension with Roman Grosjean because we're really, we're like really excited about his potential and what he could do. And now after the underperformances we've seen in recent weeks, crashes and incidents, I wonder how those contract talks are going. If I'm Michael Andretti, because we certainly expected to see a lot more from Grosjean this year, and I think Josh, your criticism of Colton Herta is absolutely justified. I've wondered, is Colton Herta focusing too much on what could be a future job instead of the current one that he has now? Is the pressure of trying to go to Formula One too much? I know a lot of people really like to hype up Colton Herta. I still think he has a lot of potential and can do some great things with his racing career. But what we've seen from him, the performance just doesn't back up someone who you want to send over to Formula One for the time being, and maybe a change of scenery at some point could do Colton Herta some good. Maybe moving over to a Ganassi or another IndyCar team, getting out of the Andretti stable. Sometimes moving on to a new team can really help you jumpstart things, and all the changeover we're seeing this year. You're right, 3 strategists in one season, just after the halfway point of the season, that's not good at all.
I don't think Penske would be the way to go. I think you've hit the nail on the head that Chip Ganassi, I think, would actually suit him quite well alongside Scott Dixon at that team. That seems like a strong lineup for Colton at Chip Ganassi. I'd be excited to see that personally as well. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Speaking of Formula One, it caught everybody by surprise. Everybody. Nobody expected to get this information today. I was in a supermarket when I got this text message, and I was verbally angry when I got this text, because earlier on today, the 2024 Formula One calendar was released, with 24 races set to take place, beginning in Bahrain on March the 2nd. And those with eagle eyes do mean that it starts with testing in February, but also practice one taking part on the 29th of February, the earliest start to a Formula One season since the 1970s. And it ends on December the 8th, making it the longest season in Formula One, spanning across 11 of the months. Yes, 11 months. Madness. Now, despite the grueling 24-race schedule, Formula One's goal when putting together this calendar was to move towards greater calendar regionalization. That's reducing the logistical burdens and making longer seasons more sustainable. This has been done by moving the Japanese Grand Prix to April. That links up with the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. And the Azerbaijan Grand Prix has been moved to September at the end of the European run as well, with its Eurasia status. And there will be 2 Middle Eastern races to close out the season in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, mirroring the start of the season in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Now, Formula One believes this will create a better flow of races in certain regions. As mentioned, the 2024 Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will host their events on a Saturday night. This is out of respect for Ramadan, which begins on the 10th of March, which is, of course, the Sunday. So, meaning that because they are back-to-back races, Bahrain moves to a Saturday to keep the flow together, and Saudi Arabia takes part on the traditional Saturday. All of this, of course, out of respect for Ramadan in those areas. Now, additionally, we'll see the return of the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai, as you can see, on the 21st of April. Mark that down. That's my 25th birthday. What a present for me as well, if I get that race. The graphic courtesy there of Formula One. Now, before I throw over to the guys here as well, I just want to say I've seen a lot of team members, a lot of journalists here today saying that this is too much, that even though the graphics has been to put together the races across the continent, the travel time is insane. We all recognize how lucky we are to work in motorsport, and especially those of us who are trying to get into Formula One and those who already work in Formula One. But I think I speak for everybody, 24 races on my part is too much. It is too much. And I think we definitely should cut back. Formula One teams aren't happy. Media are not happy. The only people who are happy are Formula One and commercial rights holders. So, gentlemen, coming to you with some big ones here. Do you think more consecutive races in the same region will help cut down on travel strain? Or is 24 races still too many for a global world championship?
I mean, but looking at the schedule, Josh, it's nice to see more races in the same region consecutively, but that's still 24 race weekends on the road. And if you work in this industry full time, that's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And we've talked about with these longer Formula One calendars that at some point people are going to get burned out, no matter how much you love the sport. I know it's easy for someone with an alternate opinion to be like, most of us dream of the opportunity that you get to work in Formula One, and you're complaining about not working. About working way too much. A lot of people would kill for that opportunity. And yeah, some people would love to have certain jobs in Formula One and all of that. But at the same time, sometimes too much of a good thing can truly be a bad thing. And I think that could be the case here with 24 races in the Formula One World Championship. And looking at the schedule right here, going to all these different places all around the world, and I know Formula One tried to do a greater job, as you said, Josh, with calendar regionalization. And looking at Canada, where it is round 9, I think it would make a lot more sense to have Canada after Miami. Try to keep it in North America instead of go from Miami to Imola, Monaco, and then back to Canada, then to Barcelona, and just hopping all along. And that's still a problem you have there with the schedule. But overall, I think at most Formula One should probably do 20 races a year. I think that would be more doable. I know some people would like it to be what it used to be, around 15 to 16 races. But I think if we're going to have a lot of races, 20 is probably the absolute max Formula One should go here. And to be racing almost 25 weeks a year, who knows? We might be racing 25 and 25, and then when 2026 come around, we'll be racing 26 and 26, and maybe we'll just keep going on and on and on. As some of the drivers have voiced concerns about all of these races. If we're like doing 20, 25, 26, 27 races a year or more, you're gonna see these drivers start to bow to Formula One a lot earlier. Instead of racing until your 40s, you might decide to race until your early 30s, mid 30s, and be like, I'm calling it a day. This is just way too much racing.
Can we grab that calendar back up for a second? Because I just wanted to share something. If you look down there, 1st to 3rd November, round 21 of the season, that's in Sao Paulo. I'm sorry, but that is still a bit too late, because I won't be there for that race, I don't think, because that could be my niece's first birthday around that time. And I'd rather see that than I'd rather see my niece's first birthday than a race in Sao Paulo. And I think many of the people are beginning to feel this as well. I'll let Jonathan come in a second. I'm sorry for jumping in here, but my quick thing, follow me here. So let's have round 1 in Bahrain, perfect place. Let's scrap Jeddah, then we'll go to Australia. Japan, actually, in this time of the year, that's quite good. I quite like that idea. Gets out the monsoon. Scrap Shanghai in China, because with the political things, we won't be going there anyway. Scrap Miami, because it's a useless circuit as well, and everybody was bored to death, me especially in the comments box. Imola is fun, so keep that, but I'd put it on a rotation with another circuit. Monaco, you sort of got to have, and sometimes it is actually quite fun. This year's actually quite good in dry conditions. Montreal, one of my favourite races, but as you say, link it back with another race on that side of the calendar, or put it later on in the year. We don't need to have it in June. Barcelona in Spain was fun this year, but nine times out of 10, it's a bad race, so we'll keep it for another year, but maybe scrap it or go somewhere else. Austria, you can't touch because it's great. The same with the British Grand Prix, always do is great racing. Hungary is just a boring processional track unless it throws it down. Hamilton only starts on the grid, so get rid of that. Belgium Grand Prix at Spa sort of always got to be kept there. Get rid of Zandvoort as well. That's a useless circuit. Literally don't know why we go there. It's just literally for Max Verstappen fans. Monza is quite good. Azerbaijan, sometimes hit and miss. I just find it a bit boring, so get rid of Azerbaijan. Singapore is, I think, one of the only true circuits on the calendar that tests the drivers. It's a bit like Malaysia. 2 hours, always goes the distance in severe heat. That's always a classic race. Austin, again, always a class race. Mexico, sorry, Del, you haven't done anything interesting in the 7 years you've been back. Get rid of you. Sao Paulo, keep that on the calendar, but don't put it in November. Put it earlier on in the season. Maybe put Sao Paulo where China would be and link it back with Miami or Canada if we have to keep it. So maybe get where Miami is, put Sao Paulo, and then put Canada right there. Sort of try and link them as much as possible. Vegas, don't even need to see that race yet. It's already bad. Qatar, literally, it's a MotoGP circuit. I literally was in the commentary box in 2021. We got to turn 3 and thought, my God, they look like giants racing on a Hot Wheels circuit. Get rid of that. We can't overtake there. Abu Dhabi, I'm sorry, but that's the best you could do for the last race of the season. Bye-bye. So I've just cut the calendar by about 7 races already and taken it down to the 18 we want. Why can't they do that? And throw in South Africa at Carl Army, and we've got a world championship. It is ridiculous. Teams will get burned out during the season. I'm burnt out just reading out the calendar. Go on, Jonathan.
Man, how do I follow that? Holy cow.
That's me ranting.
that was a trip to follow there. That was entertaining. Oh man. Yeah, wow. That was I love you, Josh. That was
Thank
great.
you.
Oh man. But no, Kobe brought up a really good point about, we might see these drivers just get burnt out and like stop racing, earlier on. I mean, we've even seen it in NASCAR where, we've gotten fewer and fewer off weeks. I mean, now this season, there's one off week between, the Clash or 2 off weeks between the Clash and the Phoenix finale. And we've seen a lot of drivers just, say, all right, I've made my millions. I'm in my 40s. I've got kids. I'm bowing out. You've seen Carl Edwards, Jimmy Johnson. Well, Jimmy Johnson, not as much. He's more back to part-time, but his wife doesn't want him racing full-time. He kind of joked about that in the media center. Tony Stewart and others, who have kind of taken a step back. I mean, Eric Almirola of Smithfield didn't want him back for more years afterward. And SHR didn't rely on Smithfield's money. Not controversial. That's actually a thing. F1, I think they just have to be careful. Like if you're having your top stars start to bow out earlier, you're not sustaining that star power, which I think is such a big part of F1. You can even ask NASCAR about that, in 2017, 2018, when Dale Jr., Carl Edwards, Jimmy Johnson later on, but Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon started retiring and getting out of the sport. It did a lot for NASCAR, not in a good way. I mean, ratings dropped, attendance dropped. You get less engagement with the sport. And when you have a sport that's so dependent on, just the drivers and the star power, that's not good. And I think F1 has a lot to go off of right now, just with the success of Drive to Survive. And you don't want to burn out your drivers. Now, I want to take my look at the calendar here because, I agree that Miami and Canada, I don't know why those 2 races couldn't go together and that European stretch couldn't go together. That seems a little odd to me. The thing that stuck out to me when I looked at this calendar was the fact that the teams are going to go from Las Vegas to Qatar in 6 days. I mean, you just consider that's a half a world, pretty much a half a world away, and you're asking the guys to go there in 6 days when just looking at the schedule, you have about 3 weeks between Singapore and the Austin date there. I mean, you're kind of pushing it and pressing it a little bit. So I think that some of these moves are a little questionable. Of course, Josh, you covered all the different nuances with the different tracks and the racing and whatnot. But I think those are just a couple moves they could have maybe looked at and maybe could look at for the future.
I didn't spot that. The 3-week gap. That's going to be interesting. Ben says, I've got a feeling it'll be 23. Very skeptical China will happen, but absolutely insanity regardless. And still no race in Africa. I have been told that there is a backup race in case China doesn't happen, and that is at a certain circuit as well in the Algarve that could take up a race. Rod Brown says NASCAR kinda is way overs, in my opinion. Familiarity not good for TV viewership too. That's true. You remove the specialness of a Grand Prix if it's on every single weekend. Same amount of time they have between Vegas and Abu Dhabi this year. What is it, 3 weeks? Surely not between Vegas and Abu Dhabi. Have I blinked and missed something? I thought they were back to back. Vegas and Abu Dhabi. Oh, yeah, back-to-back, 7 days. Yes, I get it now.
Yep, 6 days.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why Las Vegas is happening on a Saturday as well. Right, are you ready for this? So let's add in straight away there the 24 races that we've got. This is my calculator. Here we go. So, right, 24
Holy
races.
cow.
That's also going to have an estimated of 6 sprint races, but I've been hearing 8 the teams won. This year's 6 plus Silverstone plus, I think, Imola. So let's add it for an hour with the confirmed 6. That takes up to the 30 races. Next year's MotoGP calendar is 22 races. So that takes it up to 52. But plus another 22 for the sprint races already takes it up to 74. Let's add in then British Touring Car Championship. That takes it up to 104 because they have 30 races across 10 weekends. Let's then add in Formula 2 and Formula 3. Formula 2 is going to be 16 rounds next year. It takes up to 46. 12 rounds for Formula 3. That takes up to 58. Then we'll have, 18 races for, hang on a minute, 58 plus 18. That takes it up then to 76, I think. Have I got that wrong? No, 100 and... I've lost track. I am 24 plus 6 plus the 44 plus the 30. There we go. Then plus the 18, 122. Then we'll plus the 18 and the 12 again. This is 152, right? The 18 was for the Formula E calendar. Let's add in how many NASCARs have we got next year?
36 for Cup.
36 for Cup. There
Plus the 2 exhibition races, if you want to count that.
Well, yeah, let's go 38 then. That takes it to 290. Let's add the 18 next year for IndyCar. It takes up to 208. Let's then take it up as well with the 10 rounds we've got as well from WEC, including the prologue.
Oh, man, Josh's map tonight on grid.
I know. And then let's add in as well. There's a series I'm forgetting here. That's bugging me now. What else do we cover here? No, I think we've got it all. Moto 2, Moto 2, Moto 3. Another 22 plus 22. That's 44. What else?
Trucks and Xfinity.
Trucks and Xfinity. That's another 36 each. We're getting close to, by my quick calculations, around about 335 races, plus Le Mans. No, we've already done that. I think that's just about my quick mental math and knowledge of getting every series that we cover here on Grid without missing any. I feel like I'm missing a series that's hitting me in the face and I can't think of it. No, done it all. So on this channel next year, we as a team are going to be expected to have around about 334 races covered in the space of, a year.
365 days.
Yeah, we could host 1 day a year and have like a 2-week break. That's it. That is ridiculous. How? I don't get it. And they're expecting the teams and all the drivers as well to go out there. And it takes a lot to put on a world championship. Ben says time between Vegas and Qatar this year equals Vegas and Abu Dhabi this year. I think at least that's what I meant. Yeah, I get what you mean now.
That's a good point. I overlooked that.
My goodness, that's a lot of cover required. It really is as well. And I don't know. You've got Aussie Supercars. Thank you.
That's the one that's smacking in the face.
That takes us over the 400 then. So over 400 races we have to cover next year. That is insanity. Absolute insanity. And I'm sorry, I know I talked about it last year with the MotoGP. They're pushing it over the limit. I think the sprint races have sort of worked, but it has diluted the main product. Riders in the first... Look at how many riders have been injured in the MotoGP this year. We've had 9 rounds, a total of 18 races, and half of the MotoGP field are having surgery in this summer off-season because of broken bones. That's insane, because we've already run a season. It's too much. And Formula 1 are going to start pushing that risk as well. Say next year, we've got a driver who wins the first 3 races, crashes out, and then misses 2 or 3 races, and then loses out in the championship because they're so close together. It's not doable. It's not doable. TVs are going to fail, and as well, I think Matt White did it perfectly. He's not with us today. He put in our group chat earlier on. In terms of a UK point of view, Formula 1 is going to start the season on a Saturday, prime time. Saturday 3 p.m. is the race start time, UK. That's exactly when the football is on, the Premier League. And Premier League's got a big viewership. They're going to lose a lot of viewers because let me tell you something. Saturday football games, 3 p.m., everybody goes to watch. So that's going to be affecting poorly. British Grand Prix as well in a direct clash with Wimbledon. That's not great from UK British point of view. And also the Saturday races point of view in odd times across the calendar as well. How's that doing good for the American audience? Having all these races at odd times, it's quite a lot of them clashing with IndyCar races and NASCAR races. It doesn't make sense. So we'll see where it goes. But looking at the calendar, I had a mini panic attack in the supermarket earlier on when I saw this because of the size of that. I would say I could take 7 off, and I'd happily take an 18-round championship spread over 8 months. That would be better than this. This is just a mess. Not a fan. I've done with my rant now, gents. It's over to you, Kobe. I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, you said it. There you go.
Okay, I guess we'll talk about some more motorsports news from around the world, and starting with that, after returning to the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year, Cole Custer will return to the wheel of a Cup car this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Custer will drive the number 51 Ford Mustang for Rick Ware Racing. Atlanta is the first of 3 consecutive races that Custer will drive for the team. He'll also be at the following 2 races at New Hampshire and Pocono. Custer is currently 3rd in the Xfinity Championship standings with 2 wins at Portland and the Chicago Street Cars. On the previous episode of Grid Tonight, we talked about Porsche Penske Motorsports' intentions to protest the post-race penalty for IMSA that took away their sailing 6 hours of the Glen victory. A few days ago, we got the result of the appeal, which was denied. So the number 6 Porsche 963 of Matthew Jomine and Nick Tandy will head to Canada this weekend with valuable championship points lost, but they'll have a chance to redeem themselves to try to go out there and compete for a win. And looking at this statement right here from Porsche Penske Motorsport, which says Porsche Penske Motorsport has to accept IMSA's decision to deny our team's protest and keep the results of IMSA's post-race inspection at Watkins Glen, which resulted in the number 6 entry being relegated to a last place in the class after taking the overall victory in the sailing 6 hours of Glen last Sunday. The team did not begin the race with any intention of racing the car at a ride height that would cause the amount of front skid block wear that was measured post-race and did not receive any performance benefit. As a result, the unforeseen wear was caused by in-race damage that resulted in changes to the underwing and front skid area that caused aerodynamic instability, bouncing. After such a great job by our team and drivers, we are left with no recourse but to move forward and fight for another victory next weekend at Canadian Tire Motorsports Parts. So statement right there from Porsche Penske Motorsport. Marco Andretti will make his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut this weekend at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Andretti will drive the number 7 Chevrolet Silverado for Spire Motorsports, a sponsorship from Group 1001. Last year, Andretti made his Xfinity debut at the Charlotte Roval, where he finished 36. Andretti said he can't wait to get his feet wet in the Truck Series. He has lots of laps here at Mid-Ohio and in IndyCar, but this will be different, but lots of fun. He added that some Cup drivers told him that he'd love this experience. Graphic courtesy of Spire Motorsports. And entering this weekend's Townsville 500, the Repco Supercars Championship have made changes to the Ford Mustangs after a parity review. The results showed that Ford needed to increase rear downforce. The recommended changes include modifying the position, span, and angle of the rear wing, plus increasing the size of the boot spoiler. Supercar CEO Shane Howard said this required a considerable amount of man-hours, expert analysis, and communication working together to give both manufacturers a fair chance at being competitive. And I think the Supercar story is a good segment into our next thing. Pick a winner, everyone's favorite game.
Yes, indeed. The pick a winner with a fantastic leap up the field from me as well. Just like to point out. So I think everybody scored maximum points last weekend. I think it was one of the most easiest weekends we've ever had in pick a winner as well. And Kobe's still at the top of the timings. Thank you, Kobe. Very bless you. Bless you. You managed to beat Ed. Thank you very much. That's going to give me a lot of ammunition in Rome next weekend for Formula E. Okay, pick a winner time then. Supercars Townsville race number 1. And I will go with Shane van Gisbergen to continue his winning ways. I think the world's got SVG fever right now as well. And like the pandemic spreading across as well, dominating the headlines. So definitely I think SVG will take it in Townsville. What do you think, Kobe?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I think although he's gonna be jet lagged when he gets back in Australia, I'm not sure if he's back by now, but he should be pretty close there if he's not already on the ground in Townsville. I think that Shane Van Gisbergen momentum is gonna continue. We're gonna see him take race one on the streets of Townsville. It's been really incredible to see the run that Shane Van Gisbergen has been gone on in the last several years, and coming off that big win in Chicago. It would not surprise me if we see him sweeping Townsville as well. He has a whole bunch of momentum, and some comments in the chat room. Rob Brown says Shane should be in action at Townsville this weekend, folks. Yeah, SVG is going to be there trying to get locked back into his day job in the Repco Supercars Championship. And Adam Limerick agrees that SVG is going to sweep Townsville. Only 2 races this weekend instead of the traditional 3. Jonathan, you're going to make it unanimous and go with SVG to take race 1 or someone else?
Y'all got SVG fever. I got the vaccine. Brody Kostecki. I say he gets the win.
Very nice. Very, very nice indeed. Well, they say don't quit your day job, but in SVG's case, I think he should quit the day job with winning in Chicago, linking back, of course, to our first story. And taking a look at our upcoming schedule here on the Grid Network. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race is at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up. We'll get that done shortly after the IMSA race at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. On Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Grid Live Encore, a full recap, ARCA and trucks at Mid-Ohio, Xfinity and Cup at Atlanta, including, of course, the British Grand Prix as well, the biggest event in the motorsport calendar. SVG 500 starts in Supercars this weekend, says Adam as well. And a little line I'm working on as well. Tennis has Wimbledon. Ashes was associated with the cricket, but for Formula One, we have Silverstone, the birthplace of Formula One as well. It is here this weekend, the biggest race of the year. Do not miss our coverage of that as well on the pre-shows and the wrap-ups. And if you don't want to miss that, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 600 subscribers. Now help us reach our new goal of 700 on the road to 1,000. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications and follow us on all our social medias and media platforms and visit gridranking.com. Take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, and David in investing each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to join the amazing group of people who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start expanding our coverage by adding new members to the team and having our team on site to cover more races. The link for all of that is in the video description. And if you want to do a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee and then thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish and Jonathan Field from the Racing Experts, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.